Thank you, Commissioner Hittner. Thanks.
Welcome, everybody, this afternoon and a cold day coming out. Thank you for all coming out. I'd like to have Peggy be from the alternate to be a member of this commission at this time. So call the meeting to order for January 18th Zoning Board of Appeals. We've got on the agenda just three items. First item on the agenda is the approval of the report from May 31st, 2023 Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. Do we have any questions or comments on those minutes as presented, or can we have a motion to approve them as presented? Motion by Bruce. Peggy. Seconded by Peggy to approve the minutes of May 31st Zoning Board of Appeals. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. Second item on the agenda is a request from Dwayne and Cheryl Hofferman, who are present. An action on request for a variance to allow a reduction in the required minimum front yard setback in the mixed residential R2 district and to place an accessory building ahead of the front face of the principal building at 911 25th Avenue South. Why don't you, Carrie, go through what the Community Development Department came up with on their findings on this?
Okay, thank you, Chair Hittner and members of the Zoning Board. So as you stated, this is an application by Dwayne and Cheryl Hefferman for an accessory structure in front face of the principal building at 911 25th Avenue South, and also for a reduction in the required minimum front yard setback. And this is in the mixed residential R2 zoning district. So just for some background on the property, the applicant still did build a new single-family home on the property in 2022, so just very recently. And at that time, I'd just like to note that WDNR did a wetland review because the area where they did want to site their home was marked as a wetland by Wisconsin DNR, but they did have them do a review, and at that time the DNR did clear their proposed construction window, which was approximately 0.8 acres, and did determine that it was developable land. They said there may be some wetlands on other portions of the property, but that area was clear for construction. And I would also just like to note that the entire lot is a 3.4 acre lot, so it's a pretty sizable lot. And then in 2023, they did add an accessory structure without a permit. They were not aware that a permit was required, and so they did construct that within the front yard and within the front yard setback on the parcel. And the way that it was brought to our attention is the residential building inspector just happened to notice it and did know that there was no permit pulled for the structure, and so he did make contact with the applicants. And they did respond and have met with our office, and once they were aware of the dimensional requirements, their preference was very much to keep it where it has been constructed, and so they did choose to go through the area variance process for the accessory structure. So these are some photos that were submitted by the applicant. This is the new home. Yes. Oh, sure. So Cheryl's just going to pass around. These are the actual photos. They're also scanned and included in your packet. So I just want to note this isn't new information that's being distributed, but she just wants you to see the originals. So these are included just for the public review, just so everyone's aware of that. And then these are just a few of those photos that are in your packet, and then also that are being passed around now on the screen. So looking at standards of review, and I know the zoning board is very familiar with these are the three standards that we look at anytime we're considering a variance. So the first question is, do unique physical limitations exist on the property, including steep slopes or wetlands that are not generally shared by other properties that prevent compliance with ordinance requirements? So after staff's review, no, the overall lot size and area categorized as developable, that 0.8 acres, is larger than many surrounding lots. The site has been developed in a traditional manner. There's nothing unique about the development. I mean, it's very nice, single family home that's consistent with others throughout the city. And there is sufficient area for placement of an accessory structure that would still meet our dimensional standards pretty readily. I will note they have, in their supporting materials, they did note that they felt that they would be required to take down more trees to do that, and their preference is not to do that, so I just will also note that. But from our standpoint, that isn't something that's atypical with development. So the second standard is the request due to the existence of an unnecessary hardship. So in other words, can reasonable use of this property be made without a variance? And as staff's review know, the only identified hardship arises from the applicant's desire to place the accessory structure in the preferred location. But we do feel the site is adequate to accommodate the single-family residence and accessory structure as permitted by code, allowing the applicant to utilize the site in a traditional manner. And the third standard is, does the requested variance impact the interest of the neighbors, the entire community, and the general public? So our analysis and findings, typically the general intent is that accessory structures are incidental to the principal structure, that the principal structure is kind of the focal point of development, and then accessory structures are subsidiary to that, and one of the ways that's done is by placing it behind the front plane of the home, and that's pretty standard. So just the determination is there is some discernible detrimental impact from an aesthetic standpoint when accessory structures become the focal point of development or when placed in the front yard. So the staff recommendation is to deny the request based on the not satisfying the three standards. Number one, the site itself does not contain unique physical limitations. Two, there is no unnecessary hardship and property owners can reasonably use the property for its intended purpose. And then three, that the development will have some discernible negative impact on the neighbors, community, and general public and is inconsistent with the dimensional requirements outlined in Chapter 11 zoning. And then I'll turn it back over to Chair Hittner and the rest of the zoning board.
Thank you, Carrie. Any members have a question on what Carrie presented? No, no. Dwayne or Cheryl, would you like to make a presentation? That's okay.
Yard, because it's a bigger property, it's not in my front yard, it's not in front of the house, it's more than 35 feet from the edge of our garage, nestled in woods. It's, when we went to our neighbors to ask them if it was okay, one of the neighbors weren't even aware that we put it there because, again, we didn't build the shed on property, we purchased it from one of those sheds delivered, and they hauled it in and placed it in that spot. It's a beautiful little shed. It's not large. On 25th Avenue, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the neighborhood, and because of city codes, many people have put up big garages next to their existing garage. A couple of those just down the street from us are not behind. They probably got around, and maybe they got a variance, I don't know. You know, I don't want to get anybody else in trouble, but these large second garages were like put at an angle, so maybe the angle closest to the garage is 5 feet setback, the other angle is not.
Cheryl, what is the dimensions of your shed? Is
It's
that
12 by 16.
12 by 16?
Yeah.
Thank you.
You know, it's a vinyl siding, we put shingles on it to match the house. I mean, we, you know, love that neighborhood. We were thrilled to have the opportunity to buy there, so we tried very hard to fit in, you know, to become part of the neighborhood. So it's like, I just can't see where the shed is detrimental to the aesthetics of the neighborhood. And the other thing is, like, yes, we have a large property, but we did not clear many trees, not much more than where the house is. We have a yard maybe 50 feet around the house, including in the back, so finding another easily accessible spot to put the shed, and I'm not even sure how we would go about moving that shed except for calling the company who built it to come out. So I guess my whole thing is, we admit we were wrong. And again, I would like to address that. There was several opportunities where people from the city talked to us even about the shed, and had they just said to us, you need a permit, or that there are restrictions to that, we would have followed through, but that was never mentioned to us. And now we're in the mess that we're in. So,
Cheryl, do you know who you talked to in the city on that?
well, Josh was at the house with Dewey one time, I believe inspecting the sheds in the back, and Dewey told him, we're thinking about putting a shed, the decks in the back, I mean, you know, and they stood there and talked about it and never said anything about a permit. And the other was the office girl upstairs. She told us, because again, because of restrictions, we couldn't build the garage as big as we wanted, so a shed was mentioned, and she says, oh yeah, you can put a shed wherever you want. Sane, with the permit, it, you know, it could have been fixed, but anyway, I mean, that's neither here nor there. You know, it's like, the shed is nice, as you can see. Our neighbors have no problem with it being where it is. There are other, what I think, buildings in the neighborhood, you know, much more detrimental to the aesthetic of the neighborhood than our little shed. So we're asking for, you know, a variance to please be able to keep the shed in the position of, you know, where it is.
Anybody on the committee have any questions of Cheryl? Carrie, you have any questions?
Did you want?
Sure.
Dave?
Chairman, this is Kyle.
Kyle?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I would just remind you that we do statutorily need to do the public hearing. So if you do want to call the public hearing to order, ask if anyone's in favor or against 3 times, and then close it, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
You want to do it at this time, Kyle?
That's entirely up to you. It just should happen before action is taken.
Okay, thank you. Cheryl and Dewey, did you actually spend $2,000 on fill for that, or was
Yes,
that
we did.
just for that shed?
Yes, for the, they called it a, you know, level pad to be put in, so just to put that pad in that spot. And
Okay, 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 okay. Bruce, Peggy, any questions? Dave, you have any questions?
I guess my only question is, just looking at the photos, I never got to the actual place. It doesn't look like you'd have to remove many trees to make that shed comply. You just would have to get behind the garage there. Is that correct?
there probably is room off to the side, but because we built a zero entrance home, we brought fill in to big it up, so there is a slope where, I'm not sure, you know, if the trees would be affected to try and find a level spot.
Also on your lot, Cheryl and Dewey, from what I saw, you've got a huge lot, but very little of it's buildable, right?
Correct.
Right.
I mean, we're
Because
not-
of the wetlands or whatever.
Well, actually, the other end is not wetlands, but there's like natural ditches that go through there, I'm assuming, for drainage purposes. It is not our intention to build or sell off any of the property.
Okay. Todd, do you have a?
Sure.
Yes. Todd Furkey, yes.
Yep. Todd Furkey. I live at 2210 Russell Street, and I own 3 or 4 properties to the east of their property. And first off, I'd like to say that we welcome them to the neighborhood. The west side has probably struggled a little bit more than the east side of the city to obtain or acquire new housing development. And so getting more newer properties, nice-looking properties on the west side has really been a blessing to the surrounding neighborhood. With their particular situation, you know, if you ever went by, I'm sure pictures really don't do it justice, but that shed is really concealed by the surrounding trees that are there. There is a bunch of fill brought in to raise that up to the level of the driveway, so it's not sitting in a hole or anything like that. It's really not, there's no way you would call it an eyesore. I mean, it's just a complementary accessory building to the house. Putting the shed in the backyard behind the house really limits your access to it, especially today, right? 24th Avenue and Russell is not plowed during the wintertime. So if you want to access your shed, this particular shed, if it's follows the rule of the ordinance, you know, you're doing an awful lot of shoveling, and you're actually out onto the city right-of-way to access the shed that you purchased, you know. So again, to me, and I think if any of you drove by it, you could see that it is a complementary type accessory building, not something that is a hindrance or an eyesore of any type, you know. So, and that would be my comments on it. And like I say, with the property that they own, which is larger than what the footprint of the house is, you know, quite often you'll see on that gravel road that surrounds this property, you know, just last year, you know, people are dropping off dryers, you know, house dryers, clothes dryers and stuff like that. And they have been a very good as far as keeping that particular area cleaned up, and I do what I can do too. And so, again, they're a blessing to the area. Okay?
Thanks, Todd.
Yep.
Any questions for Todd or Cheryl or Dwayne? Otherwise, I'll ask for all those in favor of it. We'll count you guys as being in favor of it. I have to do it 3 times to make it legal. All those in favor of this variance? All those in favor of this variance? I would also include, probably by submission of those signatures of the neighbors, that they're in favor of the variance, because they also signed that, and they were more immediate neighbors versus Todd, which is a little bit further away. So, but Todd is also in favor of it. So, called 3 times for that, and then I'll call for all those opposed to this variance. All those opposed to this variance? All those opposed to this variance? Then we'll close the public hearing of this, and we'll discuss it. If we need extra help from you folks, we'll ask you, but otherwise we'll kind of discuss it, or I'll entertain a motion here as chairman.
I just want to add, Chair Hittner, there was someone that requested attendance through Zoom, and that the public hearing does include anyone on Zoom, but I do not think they're attending. It looks like it's just
Okay.
the group.
Dave, do you have any questions?
No, I already asked my one question.
Okay,
I'll
okay.
wait for the motion.
If it could be moved, I think from what I can see from the lot and the description, you're on the far south side of your lot is what I look at, because if you're close to Russell Street, you must be on the far south, because you got about far north side, you got about 3.5 acres or whatever you have there, so, Peggy, any questions or anything? No questions? I'll entertain a motion if somebody has a motion they'd like to make. Peggy moves to deny. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion to deny and a second by Dave. Any other discussion? I know where this is going to end.
Chairman, could you call the roll?
Yes, I'll call the
Because we
roll.
have a member remotely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Dave? How do you vote?
Aye.
Peggy?
Aye to deny, yes.
Okay, Peggy? Bruce? Bruce is deny. I'm voting in favor of the variance. So we have 3-1 vote against it, so the variance is turned down, and And I guess you folks, when the weather is appropriate, I don't think you have to make any changes now, but when the weather's appropriate, we'll probably, in all likelihood, have to move that. So, but thank you for coming in and being a part of a city meeting and commission. And I always like to thank the public for coming out and everything. So the vote was 3-1, so motion denied. So thank you very much. And the only other thing we have on our agenda is adjournment. Have a motion? Peggy moves to adjourn. Second by Bruce. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.